Hello and welcome to Smaulgld. In case you missed it, top gold and silver and cryptocurrency stories for the week ended June 10th, 2017. China and Russia to create national currencies with Ethereum. Is Ethereum in a bubble or the real deal? Ethereum rose 40% last week, nearly 300% last month, and is up over 2,500% since last year. Also, former FBI Director James Comey admitted he was a coward and a leaker and that Flynn is a good guy. China and Russia loading up on treasuries, and the People's Bank of China halting gold purchases for more than 6 months now. Also, rumors of a big gold buy within the month to rock the markets. We're going to talk about all those stories and more as we go through the week in review. Well, the top story outside of the economy was FBI former director James Comey testifying. He admitted he leaked his memo summarizing his conversations with Donald Trump through a friend to the New York Times in hopes of getting a special prosecutor. Now, this could be a violation of his employment agreement. It's certainly not a professional way of handling his affairs or the affairs of the FBI, and it's possibly a violation of 18 USC 641 that restricts public officials from appropriating government property. But let's have a listen to this stunning testimony with James Comey talking about what he did with his memo.
And finally, did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And to whom did you show copies?
I asked, President tweeted on Friday after I got fired that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
Okay, so that's how he does his job. He had the opportunity to make this public, to bring it to the attention of the Department of Justice, but he doesn't. He sits on it, and then he waits till Trump tweets, and then he gives it to a friend to leak to the New York Times with the intention that a special prosecutor will go after Donald Trump. That's the director of the FBI and how he conducted his affairs. That's just one shocking example of what happened in the testimony. Now, he said that he took notes of his meeting with Trump, but never with any other president, because basically he thought Trump was a liar. Okay, so he's working for a liar, and he's perfectly fine with that until he gets fired. Now, on the point of whether Trump obstructed justice, there was some very interesting testimony. Comey claimed that when Trump said to him, quote, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. I hope you can let this go." Comey took that as an order. At least he says now it was an order, even though Trump said hope. But rather than interpreting it as an order immediately, as he could have done, and telling the president that this type of comment is inappropriate and perhaps criminal, or maybe asking the president for clarification, what did Comey say after Trump said this to him? He said, "I agree, Flynn is a good guy." Now, Director Comey notified no one outside of his department of his conversation with Trump and did nothing until he got fired. And then his response was to have a friend leak the memo to the New York Times. Now, if Director Comey believed that Trump had committed a crime in attempting to obstruct justice, he had an obligation to report it, plain and simple. He didn't. Further, when asked in congressional testimony last month, this is after his meeting with Trump that he took the memo on, if he'd ever been asked to stop an investigation, he said it had not happened. That would be a big deal if it happened. And then indicating that Comey created this obstruction narrative after he got fired because he testified to Congress that this kind of thing had never happened, and if it did happen, it would be a big deal. Comey also noted correctly that in theory, the Justice Department, which is under the president, can ask the FBI to halt investigations. He said it hadn't happened, but it is their purview to do so. Now, left-wing attorney Alan Dershowitz, he made the point that the president is well within his constitutional rights to direct, not hope, that the FBI drop a case. And indeed, Dershowitz made the point the president could have instructed Comey to stop the investigation because he was going to pardon Flynn, and gave examples of other presidents taking similar actions. Now, that may not be Comey's interpretation of the law. It's probably correct, but let's say it isn't. If Comey felt that the president had no right to do that, although he did indicate in his testimony that in theory the president and the Justice Department do have the right, but if he actually believed at the time that they did not have the right to do so, for Trump to have pressured him to halt the investigation, then he had an obligation, if he thought there was a commission of a crime, to report it. He didn't. So now Democratic Senator Feinstein, who is no fan of Donald Trump, asked Director Comey the obvious question. When you heard Donald Trump say, I hope that you can let this go, why didn't you stop and say, Mr. President, this is wrong. I cannot discuss it with you? Comey responded by saying, that's a good question. Maybe if I were stronger, I would have. I was so stunned by the conversation that I just took it in. And then he did nothing. Here you have the head of the FBI stunned that a crime, that's his job, to investigate crimes, was a crime in his mind may have been committed. So he becomes paralyzed. He can't do his job now. He's been so stunned and shocked to his core that he just sits there with his jaw open and then says, yeah, Trump is a good guy. I mean, Flynn's a good guy. I agree. He clearly either doesn't know how to do his job or he's just making up a story, because if he actually believed, and he's a long-term veteran, that a crime is being committed in his presence, he sits there and goes, yeah, Flynn is a good guy. That's his response. And then tells the senator, maybe if I were stronger. Well, you just admitted that you do need to have some fortitude, some backbone, if you're going to be the FBI director, to basically do your job. You don't allow the president to obstruct justice right in front of you and do nothing. Now, that begs the whole question whether Trump was obstructing justice, and probably Comey probably didn't think he was obstructing justice, but realized this was the last thing he could hang his hat on, so he brought it out after he got fired. But also, even if the president isn't within his constitutional purview to stop an investigation, one of the senators asked Comey, has anyone ever been convicted of hoping something won't happen? And of course, that is also saying that if Trump wanted to order Comey to stop the investigation, he would have ordered him. He wouldn't say, I hope. And Comey responded, well, not in his words. Okay, so with Trump, Comey is saying, you have to trust me that my feeling was that Trump was acting like some type of mafia don and using the word hope, meaning I'm instructing you to do so. Clearly not the case. It seems to me as if Comey wanted to entrap the president by leaking the memo. Also, which is also telling, is that Comey had refused to publicly state the president wasn't under investigation, which allowed the media to continue to speculate that he was, highlighting his intent to bring the president down. The other thing that Comey did was he volunteered that former Attorney General Loretta Lynch interfered in the Hillary Clinton matter. Comey was conducting and was very much involved in a long-term investigation into Hillary Clinton's email handling of classified email, and that was indeed a criminal investigation. And Loretta Lynch called him, Comey, and said, don't call it a criminal investigation, don't call it an investigation, just call it a matter. And so Comey did. He admitted, yeah, that's what I did. I reported it as a matter. He says, but it wasn't a big deal because the media picked up on it and called it an investigation anyway. So here you have a guy who is admitting or is claiming an interpretation that Trump hoped something would happen was an order, but doesn't report it. And then also admits he didn't report when Loretta Lynch called him up and instructed him, ordered him to call and followed her orders and call his criminal investigation a matter. So the reason I raise all this is I have been saying that political uncertainty does underpin prices of precious metals. So far, we have not seen any real fallout from the what I think is massive political uncertainty. You have an unpopular president, and you have a media that is totally against him. You have a lot of things going on in the world, and gold is just not catching a safe haven uncertainty bid. However, it's a good transition. What is catching up, what are catching bids are the cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Dashcoin, the whole raft of them are on a tear and have been all year. And that leads to the question, is Ethereum in a bubble? For those of you who don't know, Ethereum is a cryptocurrency, and it is in some respects now stealing the stage from Bitcoin. There was a report earlier in the week that the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, met with the Ethereum founder. There were statements to the effect that China and Russia may be working on using Ethereum, not Bitcoin, as the underpinning for creating national cryptocurrencies. Now, the value and number of initial coin offerings using Ethereum is soaring. I've put a list here for you. The market cap of Ethereum is now 68% of Bitcoin. This happened literally overnight in the last few months. The Ethereum has come out of nowhere, and also the trading volume in the past 24 hours from the date of this YouTube, which is June 11th, exceeded Bitcoin. So over 2 billion Ether were shared over the past 24 hours versus 1.9 billion of Bitcoin. Now, these are big numbers. The cryptocurrencies are now, I mean, they're big numbers to us in just as normal, regular people. They're not big compared to the stock market, but they are clearly increasing the number of people owning these cryptocurrencies, the value of them, and the total market cap of them is growing rapidly. And Bitcoin now, which used to be 70, 80, 90% just a year or two ago of the total market capitalization of cryptocurrencies, is now about 45%, with Ethereum picking up a good portion of that. So Ethereum is now, there's a Bancor market cap. It's going to be 1 million Ether. This is one of these initial coin offerings. Here's a list here. You can check it out. So the question is, what is going on? Is this Ethereum thing a bubble? This is for discussion. What is a bubble? Is it something that goes up too fast, too soon? Is it something that won't stop rising? Is it something that rises without basis? Is it something that rises seemingly in a manner different than other assets that have risen? And how long do bubbles last? And can one profit from a bubble? Let's take some of these questions together. So first of all, how do you even value a cryptocurrency? It's not like you can say, well, it's overvalued because the price, earnings, the sales. You don't even know how people value cryptocurrencies. Is it on use? Is it on... It has to be speculative. Now, as to what is a bubble. People look at the price as something, it goes up, and the initial knee-jerk reaction, which is generally correct because it's a gut reaction, is it's a bubble. Sure, it went from 50 to 150, well, that's a bubble. Okay, then it goes from 150 to 250. They say, well, yeah, well, that's a bubble. And the implication is something's a bubble means it's going to burst soon. Then it goes from 250 to 350. Well, yeah, of course it's a bubble. It's going to crash soon. But we've seen these bubbles. They can blow up, 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 and they can get much bigger and may eventually burst. But that doesn't mean that Ethereum or anything that is increasing in price is going to stop soon. The dot-com bubble, which was clearly the type of bubble that was rising without real underpinning or on real basis, that rose for 4 years. I think the current stock market has been rising for 6 or 7 years without any real underpinning. So bubbles, and first of all, I think recently have lasted far longer than they normally last. But another point about Ethereum is that these massive gains that we saw, these 2,500% gains in the last 6 months, 5 months, whatever it is, that's all happened and everyone can see it and they think, wow, that's crazy, that's nuts. But what people don't see are companies don't necessarily rise that quickly. Yes, they don't rise that quickly usually when they're in the public market and trading, but they do rise that quickly in their startup stage. So you start a company and its first year, it's not listed on the stock exchange. It's not worth 500 million. It's not worth $1 billion, $2 billion. But over the course of 2 or 3 years and before it goes public, it literally can go from being worth $5-10 million because it doesn't have much profit or none. And then once it goes public, there's a massive increase in that company's valuation. And then maybe it trades and it only grows 50%, 100% a year or whatever. But there is a tenfold or fivefold increase or even higher in the price of a lot of startup companies from the time when they go before they're public to the time that they are public. So perhaps what we're seeing now is just basically the Ethereum going through its transition from a startup coin, initial coin offering, to a established coin. And maybe now that it's trading at $300-400, it won't grow 2,500%. So just because something grows 2,500% doesn't mean that it's overvalued or it's automatically in a bubble. It could. I'm not saying that Ethereum is not in a bubble. I'm just saying that there's a possibility that if this thing is real and China and Russia are going to use this to not back their currencies, but as the backbone of their currencies, and there's all these initial coin offerings coming out, and again, nothing stops the coin offerings from continuing, and there continues to be demand for these coin offerings, and institutional money moves into cryptocurrencies. Well, all that money coming in means the price generally has to go higher. Not predicting it's going to go higher. I'm just saying that there's a possibility that these things could happen. So not everything that goes up or straight up is in a bubble. Now bubbles burst, real bubbles burst as there's little or no underlying value. So for example, in the dot-com bubble, those companies had no business being worth $1 billion, $2 billion, whatever they were worth. Because when the bubble burst, they went down hard, and they were finished, and they were gone, and you never saw them again. So a real bubble means, I think, the asset was never worth anywhere near the price that it had been up to, and perhaps wasn't even worth anything. However, assets that are the real deal, that rise too high, too fast, too high, too fast, they will correct. They can't just go straight up. However, that doesn't mean they then just collapse and go away. They could rise again. And a good example that we have is Bitcoin. Bitcoin went from 0 to 1,000 and it dropped. It fell. It went back down to $300. So that wasn't a bubble bursting. What that was a asset that got valued too high too fast, but now it's $2,800. So is it a bubble? Probably not. Same with, now let's take a look at, so if the asset is real and is going to last and continue to provide value, it's just a matter of properly valuing it. It's not, it has to rise up to the sky and then vanish as a bubble would, which is burst and go into the ether. No pun intended. Now let's take a look at the Microsoft supposed bubble from 1986 to 2000. Went straight up. Rarely corrected. Well, there's a reason for that. Because Microsoft had underlying value. It was continuing to grow and sell Windows. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it attracted more capital, more investment. It continued to grow its revenues. It continued to grow its profits. So it grew into the valuation. It didn't mean it was in a bubble. It just meant, yeah, maybe it had gotten ahead of itself. But there was a reason people thought it was going to get ahead of itself. Generally, markets don't create bubbles. Intervention creates bubbles. If a market sees an asset and believes in its prospects and believes that it will grow into a valuation, then it's justified in paying something above the normal PE, above the normal price sales ratio. And that's what happened to Microsoft. Microsoft was continually bid up, not in a mania or in a bubble manner, but because investors thought that it was worth the cash and the profit it was generating. Today, we don't have this type of analysis. People just bid them up because they want to bid them up, or a central bank is buying it. I mean, you think about it. Swiss National Bank buys social media stocks with no profits. So they're not prudent investors, but they go up anyway, those stocks. Now, anyway, let me know what you think about Ethereum, cryptocurrencies, and anyone who has any ideas on how to value those things. Now, if you want to speculate, and I'm not suggesting that you do, you can buy these crypto coins. There's a link here. I get $10 if you sign up. It is not something I am recommending, but it's Coinbase. You can try them. There's a couple of other exchanges. You could lose your money, not just on the prices of these cryptocurrencies, but they could lose your coins, and then you're out. You've heard about Mt. Gox. So clearly, I'm not saying to get involved in cryptocurrencies. Some people think that the advantage of cryptocurrencies is that they're not potentially manipulated by central banks. And for that reason, because they're on this growth trajectory, there's a lot of demand, there's somewhat limited supply, and these things are going up. And, if you had taken that point of view the last couple of years, you would have been 100% correct, and you would have made a large percentage gains. The question is then, can you get out of them? This is not an investment seminar on cryptocurrencies. You need to do a lot of research on what they are and their valuations and how you can possibly value them. But in any event, if you are interested, there's the link. You can go in there and try to buy them and trade them and test your luck. But warning, that is not something you want to do lightly. Now, gold and silver, a little more stable assets than the cryptocurrencies. They closed down during the week. Gold was down less than 1%, silver down 2%. Silver closed at 17.17 an ounce, and gold 12.66. And the gold silver ratio continues to be 73.76 to 1. So that gold silver ratio, much touted, must go down, hasn't gone down for years, remains over 70 to 1. And I'm not going to go into it now, but there are good reasons for that, and there are good reasons for it to stay that way. Here's your pitch to donate to Smaulgld via PayPal. You can also donate via Bitcoin, but I think what they're saying now over at Coinbase is because the fees are so high, if you donate small amounts, it's going to cost you probably more than the amount you want to donate. So if you are, this isn't a pitch to donate big amounts, but if you are going to donate Bitcoin, you have to make it a bigger amount than I have on here. At the time, I think this was $10, $12. I don't even know what it's worth now. It's probably worth more, but it's still not enough to make it worthwhile to send small amounts of Bitcoin because of their transaction fees. So if you want to send small amounts, the PayPal has transaction fees too. So really what I'm saying is send large amounts. How's that? Then you don't pay this percentage of a transaction fee. All right. Let's get into some of the other stories. So tweets of the week. Vladimir Putin meets with Vitalik Buterin, endorses Ethereum. That's an actual story. There's a little Ethereum guy, and there are he's Russian, this guy, by the way, the inventor of Ethereum. I think he's 24 years old. Dollar collapse, China dumping treasuries, game over. This is another point. This is a point of one of the headlines is, and the Zero Hedge mentioned this, foreign central banks are quietly scooping up treasuries. Yes, indeed, something that I had predicted would happen, that the dumping of treasuries would stop, especially with the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates, makes the new bonds that they buy more attractive, makes them cheaper, gives them a higher rate of interest. And also with the new president, there's incentives for Russia not to be as hostile to the United States, supposedly because Trump is a Russian agent. It's a joke. And also for China, because China doesn't want to be deemed a currency manipulator by the United States. So obviously buying treasuries is also a good thing for them both to do. From last week, a couple of stories I didn't cover. Hoard of Roman coins found. You can click on that. That's a nice set of pictures in there. Some Roman coins found up in the Netherlands. Now, here's something that ties into the cryptocurrencies. 1 gram launches 500 million ICO, that's initial coin offering, for a Sharia-compliant gold-backed digital currency. Where are they going to get $500 million worth of gold to back this? Well, they're going to have to go out and buy it. And I think that's what leading to this story about the shock the world, 26 days, King World News is going to really shake up the gold markets. I think this is what they're talking about. There's going to be a big unanticipated buy. Comex is going to collapse. None of that's true. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. But I think this is just a story we want to mention, that the cryptocurrencies can also be backed, and the Sharia compliant one looks like it's going to have a decent amount of gold, and they have to go out and get that gold. Also, we covered during the week American gold buffalo sales, not very good. You can see those here. Living through an economic collapse. This is part of the Smaulgld subscriber sound off series interview with a gentleman named Slav who lived through a economic collapse in Bulgaria. You want to check that out. Something about Russia. Russia often says one thing and does another. When I say Russia, the Central Bank of Russia. So the Russian financial minister to raise foreign exchange purchases fivefold in June. Okay, that makes sense. They want to make sure the ruble doesn't get too strong. They want to have some reserves and some other foreign currencies. But that contradicts the whole, excuse me, the thing that they said at the St. Petersburg conference just last week, that they have no plan in boosting foreign reserves or their gold reserves. Well, they have been boosting their gold reserves, and now they've been boosting both their foreign reserves, currency reserves, gold reserves, and they say then they have no plans to do so, and then they announce plans to do so, and then they do so. Just something to keep in mind, that these governments like to say one thing, perhaps and do another. Who knows why they say one thing? Who knows why they do it? But one thing is for sure, Russia is adding gold to her reserves, is adding foreign currencies to their reserves. And China, apparently, People's Bank of China, is not adding gold to her reserves. But both People's Bank of China and the Central Bank of Russia are adding U.S. Treasuries. U.S. economic data during the week. Again, nothing very good that would indicate the economy is surging, therefore we need to raise rates, but the Fed will raise rates as the dollar drops, and it has nothing to do with the state of the economy. They'll probably raise them another time. U.S. Mint sales update. Horrible for gold again so far in June, and not very good for American Silver Eagles. This is the only report we had. We got 229,000 American Silver Eagles sold so far through almost mid-June, and no gold eagles reported being sold, and just 500 American gold buffaloes. If you want to buy gold or silver eagles, check out the links below this YouTube. Smaulgld gets a small commission, but you pay no more, no less than if you visited these bullion dealers directly: BGASC, SD Bullion, Money Metals Exchange, Golden Eagle Coins. Check them out, compare pricing and shipping, and then you can buy your gold and silver that way. It does help Smaulgld out. Again, not investment advice. But if you made the decision, just like your investment research into cryptocurrencies, then please consider buying through Smaulgld or the Smaulgld links. Smaulgld doesn't own any of these coins, doesn't send you the coins. These are affiliate links. You just click there, and Smaulgld gets a commission for sending the business to the bullion dealers. The beautiful coins, looks like that Frederick Douglass coin is not going to sell more than 20,000. Looks like they limited that one. That'll be the lowest minted coin since the Hawaiian volcano one. There's already a high premium on that over the other the beautiful coins. Although the effigy Mount coin only has 28,000 sold, and the Ozark National Scenic Green River Rays, which is just released, 17,000. So this year is a very low year for sales of the America the Beautiful coin. Last year was the second highest year. You could check out the mintages at this link. Also from Smaulgld, Kazakhstan boosts gold reserves to 37%. There's a story here about Deutsche Bank metals trader revealing spoofing tricks from the master. As we mention all the time, China's gold appetite is strong, so is India's. It's just that their central banks are not interested as much in gold as their citizens are. Perth Mint, U.S. outsells U.S. Mint gold sales. The Perth Mint had a decent month in May. Wasn't bad, and it actually sold more gold than the U.S. Mint, which is rare because the U.S. Mint is a much larger mint and traditionally the largest seller of gold of the sovereign mints. Here we go. Here's another story. Reversal. China boosts U.S. Treasury holdings, halts gold purchases. Trend I saw coming before it happened, and it is now happening. You can see here is the increase in the Treasuries. That's just through March. Wait till we get April's and May's. They come out on a 2-month delay, but we already know China's foreign reserve holdings have increased those 2 months, so I assume or speculate, but with strong conviction, that the bulk of the addition of their foreign reserves are going to be in U.S. Treasuries. Perth Mint sales, they weren't bad either, 826,000 in May. So the U.S. Mint is experiencing a dip. Not sure why. Some speculate that the numbers are now incorrect. I don't know about that. I mean, people want to believe the numbers when they're up, don't want to believe them when they're down. I don't see any real incentive for the U.S. Mint to fudge their numbers. There's just no upside to doing that because no one even pays attention to the U.S. Mint sales other than Smaulgld subscribers and a few other people. So I don't think they're making the numbers up. I just think there isn't demand. And you could probably confirm that with the bullion dealers that their sales are not going through the roof right now. Also on this day, on June 8th, Comey testified. We had the UK elections. The Conservative Party had a shocker. They lost the majority. They had to go hat in hand to try to create a government. So now Brexit is in jeopardy. And none of this seemed to shock the markets. I mean, the markets claim to be shocked, but didn't really reflect in the prices of precious metals or the prices of the stock market. Sharps Pixley, an English bullion dealer, sees 252% increase in physical gold demand. That's pretty interesting. I mean, they went through Brexit, so they know that the pound is the most likely currency to get hurt in all this turmoil, has been because of Brexit. So there's an increase in physical gold demand in the United Kingdom. Russia, Chinese gold reserves to cut global economy's addiction to dollar. Now here's the story. This is Sputnik News. It might as well just be TASS. They're talking about how they're adding gold reserves. The story is old because the People's Bank of China isn't adding gold reserves. And they cite official numbers, so it's not like they know something internally. They cite where People's Bank of China has 1,842 tons of gold. Yeah, that's the same amount of gold that they've announced they had in October 2016. So this is just another propaganda piece trying to downplay the dollar, upplay that China and Russia are just going gangbusters, meaning the central banks, and adding gold. They're not. Central banks are, even Russia and China, even though Russia is number one, but most central banks are not fans of gold other than to hold what they have. They're not going out and adding more. Why? Central banks love credit. They buy each other's debt. That's kind of a gentleman's agreement, or central bank's agreement. Agreement among thieves, whatever you want to call it. They buy each other's debt. Russia's buying they buy foreign currencies. They don't add a lot of gold. They have agreements amongst themselves on how much gold they'll buy or sell. So when you hear stories that they're all buying gold hand over fist, it's just not true. The ones that do add gold are the countries, Australia doesn't do this and they should, but countries that have gold mining production, makes sense for them to buy their own domestic supply, something Russia does, something China has done, and something Kazakhstan does. June 10th, here, this is the story. Russia and China to digitize their currencies with Ethereum. Okay, check out that story. If true, it means that Ethereum in some respects is the real deal. Should it be worth $345? I don't know. Should it be worth $10? $3,000? Who knows? But if it's going to have use and demand, it's not worthless, and therefore in a bubble that once it pops, it'll become worthless again. My prediction, for what it's worth, it'll go up and it'll correct. And it'll go to zero if it turns out to be a dud. Or it'll go up, it'll correct, and if it turns out to be what people think it is, that it's some type of game-changing cryptocurrency, then it'll go back up again. The secret there is, when does all that happen? If you can time that, that's how you become rich. Or if you get it wrong, that's how you become poor. Okay, now let's talk about this. Unknown entity deletes portion of whistleblower Andrew Maguire's King World News audio interview about a major event in 26 states. This is the kind of story that drives me nuts. And this is the kind of story that grabs headlines. This is the kind of story that grabs clicks. This is the kind of story that sells precious metals, sells subscriptions. This is the kind of story that's just almost probably complete BS. So, What I'm hearing is, oh, we don't know what it is, but some entity is going to buy all this gold, and then the COMEX is going to collapse, and the dollar is going to collapse. No, it's not. If a fund like Sprott or any fund or a cryptocurrency backed by gold wants to buy gold, they don't go on the COMEX and buy futures contracts and then hope to stand for delivery. And then when they don't get delivery, the COMEX collapse. Why would a fund do that? The fund's job is to get the gold, not to collapse the COMEX. If you know that there's not enough gold to deliver, then you wouldn't do that. Okay, so if they're not going to buy it on the COMEX, which they'd be complete morons to do, people who buy futures contracts want exposure to the price of gold or silver, they're going to go out and they're going to broker their deal for gold or silver. And also, unlike COMEX manipulation, they're going to try to do it in increments so they don't impact the gold price. They're not going to go out and buy, if it's the Sharia law compliant initial coin offering, they're not going to go out and place an order for $500 million worth of gold on one day and ask for delivery. They take a while to accumulate the gold because they have a fiduciary duty to make sure that they get the gold at a good price. They don't want to drive the price up because they're doing an offering. So if there is supposedly a big gold order coming in, the person buying would be, or the entity buying would be foolish to place it on a day and then stand for delivery of it. Doesn't make a stitch of sense. But anyway, for those of you who want a little more analysis, check out this article, Why COMEX Won't Default. I'm not going to go through all the reasons right now. Check out this video. This tells you, this COMEX default story never goes away. It's been going on for 10 years. It's imminent. You can do Google searches on it, and you can see how every commentator every now and then comes out with a claim. It's going to happen. They're running out of gold, losing control, all this nonsense. And really, it's just a bunch of hype. And it's not going to happen. And certainly, no fund is going to place an order for like $1 billion worth of gold and then stand for delivery and then not get it, and then the COMEX is going to collapse. Plenty of reasons why that's not going to happen. Common sense tells you no fund is stupid enough to do that. In any event, that's about it for this week. Thank you very much. Please remember to donate to Smaulgld if you can, and also to subscribe to Smaulgld. We still have some of those reports, silver reports, very interesting report, at $20. Thanks for listening.